This video is brought to you by MUBI, a curated online cinema streaming exceptional films from around the globe. Get your first month for free at mubi.com/royalocean. When designing the poster for The Shining, legendary graphic designer Saul Bass submitted a reported 300 potential drafts before he and director Stanley Kubrick settled on the final arresting image we know today. Taking a look at those drafts, it's easy to see why they weren't quite up to snuff. From Kubrick's own scribbled annotations, a half-tone stylized title was too difficult to read, a maze as the poster's primary icon was a bit too abstract, and, well, this version made the film look like it was a science fiction. None of that's meant as any kind of slight against Bass, but instead I think is a great insight into his working philosophy, and precisely what made that work so brilliant. The title sequences, the posters, the logos, all were designed with the iterative guiding principle of distilling a film's major ideas, themes, and overarching tonality into as singular a visual image as possible. In other words, symbolize and summarize. It took 300 drafts to whittle the horrors of the Overlook Hotel down to a dotted image of Danny Torrance emerging from darkness in a pose eerily reminiscent of Edvard Munch's The Scream, the entire poster drenched in a bold yellow, making for an effectively haunting and promising work of art. There have been a lot of great film posters designed by a lot of great artists, but if you want to be the cool kid in your dorm hall and not go for hanging up a more obvious choice, the answer, in my not-so-humble opinion at least, is... The first poster Bass became well known for was on one of more than a dozen collaborations with director Otto Preminger. The film was Carmen Jones, and the poster aggressively simple. A still frame of actress Dorothy Dandridge in all black and white, but for her dress and lips both rendered bright red, a reflection of the film's fiery seductress lead character decked out in a kind of scarlet letter fashion. Compare it with contemporary posters of the day, and it's easy to see where the differences begin. Posters up until this point in film history were typically drawn in a classical, almost romantic style, and were nearly always centered around massive images of the actors' faces, about which Bass complained, almost all film ads used a potpourri approach. Advertisers threw everything into the pot using the theory that as a filmgoer you would find something in the ad that would inspire you to see the film. The idea of having a film expressed within the framework of one single reductive statement was a very daring notion in the 50s. You were saying, of course, that you could make one statement that would be sufficiently provocative and true to the film, and that would sell the film. A daring notion indeed, but one proven successful by the following poster in Bass's career that undeniably put him on the map. The Man with the Golden Arm, which spun the story of a jazz drummer's battle with heroin into a jagged arm surrounded by fragmented colors. The film's ad campaign, along with its iconic title sequence, were undeniably massively contributing factors to the film's success. And I think inside of that evocative poster, we can find nearly all of the elements that make a Saul Bass poster. First up is color. Where contemporary posters of the day blended numerous colors, Bass kept things to a minimum, usually just 3 or 4. White, black, and with any additional color always being either the contrasting color of the poster that the eye is instantly drawn to, for instance the blue text of In Harm's Way, or more often than not was the overall dominant color of the poster, particularly if that color was some shade of red. The man, like all great filmmakers, was fairly obsessed with it. And I think it's easy to see why. There's a kind of instant attraction it brings. It stands out and demands attention all by itself. One of the things Bass's posters are so known for is their confident use of negative space, letting the image and color contrast without being too busy. In fact, one of the things you see when people try to emulate Bass's style is that they often overload the image with elements Bass would have never included. Look especially to some of his later posters, for instance The Human Factor, for a particularly minimal approach. I don't know if I have a favorite Bass poster or not, but if I had to choose, it'd probably be between this one and the design he did for a film called Such Good Friends. Neither films of which I've seen, but both whose posters are so powerfully suggestive. It's ideas, not Hollywood superstars, that are at the forefront and focus. Such Good Friends has to it a kind of sensual, sultry curiosity. A previous poster for Love in the Afternoon, the same thing, with that recognizable sharp Bass hand slyly pulling the shades. Advise and Consent teases the lid being lifted, revealing the truth. There's an element of fatality in his unused pitch for The Magnificent Seven. And Vertigo, with its two silhouettes falling into a vortex of those helix-like swirls, suggests a dizzying mixture of anxiety, disorientation, and terror. Hands, faces, everyday objects, this was Bass's playground, twisting and fragmenting the ordinary into the extraordinary. And in so much of that work you see a kind of purposeful messiness, a consciously handcrafted feeling. You see it in the uneven color blocks for Anatomy of a Murder, in the ripped portrait of Liza Minnelli in Tell Me That You Love Me, Junie Moon, and in the messy figures of 1, 2, 3. The whole of his work is inseparable from the modern art movement of the 20th century. Looking at one of his posters is like looking at jazz-made visual. And inside of that, as John Updike suggested about the whole of modern art, is the feeling that there's a need within every piece to confess artifice. And as it was with The Shining, none of it, I guarantee you, came easily or quickly. Bass's work comes across so simple and almost casual, but simplicity is an art of iteration. Behind every curve, every line, and every idea are hundreds, if not thousands, of preceding drafts. Looking at a Saul Bass poster is looking at the work of someone who's put the same amount of energy into a one sheet that the director whose film it's for put into the entire project. And I think that's one of the things that's made his work last for as long as it has.
The fact of the matter is, I want everything we do, that I do personally, that our office does, to be beautiful. I don't give a damn whether the client understands that that's worth anything, or whether the client thinks it's worth anything, or whether it is worth anything. It's worth it to me. It's the way I want to live my life. I want to make beautiful things, even if nobody cares, as against ugly things. Now, sometimes you can't make everything beautiful because that's my intent.
This video is brought to you by MUBI. So one of the weird issues I think we've all faced with streaming services is just how overloaded they can be. Not only are great films lost in the mix, but there are so many different possible choices that I actually think I end up spending more time browsing through films and adding things to watch lists than I do actually watching anything. MUBI, however, takes a different approach. They feature only 30 films at a time, with one added and taken away every day. And I think that's such a fascinating strategy. Instead of just anything and everything being dumped on the service, every single film comes lovingly handpicked and curated, so you know it's something worthy of checking out. And right now you can try it out for free for 30 days by going to mubi.com/royalocean.